because on my end it said we were not live. I'm so excited. We're live. Welcome to book club. Welcome to November book club. This is our last book club of 2023. I'm so excited. I'm certain I will mention it again, but I'm so excited because we are celebrating the end of our reading year together amongst friends with our very dear friend and longtime book club member and wonderful support of the community, an all-round cinnamon roll and mensch, Robert Dahlen. Robert, welcome to book club.
Hello, good to see everybody here. It's nice to be back.
It's so good to have you back. We have had you before, and I'm thrilled that we're going to get to discuss your wonderful book, Cove. And what I have been telling everyone is a cozy steampunk adventure, because it's a little bit more adventure than your Peevely Manor books in some ways. It's more daring do, but it's also got your signature cozy qualities, Robert.
Yes, it does. There's tea. Lots of tea. There's snacks. There's a cute pet. There's a bit of smooching, which usually doesn't happen in the Peevely Manor books.
It does not, but there is some smooching. There is. And let me just, I apologize for pausing you, but let me just do a quick technology check. Or, Bill, could I have you pop round and check for us? Thank you. Thank you, Terry, for noting. Apparently, we're not live on Facebook. And if we're not, I shall start recording, but I would like to capture as much as possible, Robert, because I know we're going to have a wonderful chat, and I don't want to miss any moments of that and the ability to share with more folks.
I think it may depend on where in Facebook you are. It's not in, if you're in the temporal entourage people, if you're in the book people, if you're in because that's the problem I always have, is finding the right place to go for the links.
It should always be on the Madame Askew Grand Arbiter Facebook page.
Well, yes, but
let me just go in and see what's happening, my darlings, with my apologies, Robert.
It's live.
No problem.
It looks like it's live on the Facebook page, which is where it should be. So it's live on my end, with apologies, Terry. I don't know what's happening, but it's there. All right, so my apologies for the interruption, but let's get back to it. Just refresh, if you can't see it, refresh your page, but also if you're in the Zoom, you don't need to worry about it because you're experiencing the thing. So with my apologies for the interruption, Robert, I'm so happy to have this chat with you. Now, we became friends because of a mutual friend a number of years ago, and I have always loved that you were in the midst of delving into writing a steampunk story, and our mutual friend was like, tea dueling, you need to talk to this human that I happen to be studying linguistics with. So,
yes, that would be Amber, of course, and Amber has an even bigger role to play because I'm veering off Copper Cove for a moment, so forgive me, but
please.
At the very beginning, I started coming up with an idea for another pair of steampunk characters, and I had no idea if this was any good or not because it was so unlike anything I had done and a lot unlike anything I'd seen. So I came up with this one scene and I shot it over to Amber and said, take a look, see what you think. And she thought it was really, really good. And that was enough inspiration for me to start concocting the Peevely Manor stories. That very scene was the first meeting of Alice and Macaulay from the Peevely Manor novel.
Yeah. Now, this was not your first novel. You had written before. You wrote the Monkey Queen books before you got into Peevely Manor.
Right. and one of those had some definite steampunk influences. The third one, Under the Stars of Fairy, which had airships and automatons and daring do and traps and no smooching, but definite hints that smooching might be eventually in the horizon.
Yes.
And it was, I think it was probably the best Monkey Queen book I wrote, although it's probably not my favorite.
Mm.
But even so, was my first expedition to steampunk, and then there was another one a bit later. What happened was at one point, Kindle had something going called Kindle Worlds, and they were recruiting people to tell stories in other universes, but basically paid fan fiction. And there was this one author whose name I cannot remember at this point. I have to apologize for at some point, but we were setting stories in her universe, although as it turned out, it was all we had to do was just mention a couple of names and we were all set. And a friend of mine, Star Darksbane, recruited me into that. And my first thought was, oh, I can't do anything. I can't do anything. I can't do anything. I don't know if I have time. I don't know if I have an idea. And 48 hours later, I started writing Skyblade's Gambit. So that was, I think, my first real steampunk thing, although that one, there were airships, there was a half human, half automaton opponent, there was daring do, there was the occasional mention of food, and there was smooching.
There was smooching. There's smooching.
Yes, lots of smooching.
Yes.
But anyway, from there, I had other ideas I had packed around, and when I started getting exposed to steampunk in full blast, some of those ideas came together with some thoughts I had about the state of the world and how technology would affect a fantasy universe as long as it was in the steampunk bent. And there added in a couple of parallels to the real world and threw in lots of tea and snacks and some comedy and all that, and out came Copper Cove.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, listen, this is a thing about Robert, about your writing, is that people should not start reading hungry. Because you do have a penchant for adding delicious snacks, and they're so enticing on the page. I'm always like, where's my tea? Why did I sit down without the tea? It may be midnight, I may be reading technically in bed, but I still need a plate of bickies and a cup of tea. It's so delicious.
Either that or else have Grubhub on speed dial.
They should really be thanking you for making everyone terribly hungry in the best way whilst we read your books, because food does often play a part in not only fleshing out some of the character but also bringing your world to life. I love the way in which it may seem like it's just a little fillip of detail, but you use all of these fillips to really flesh out this wonderful world that you've been creating between Peevely Manor and Copper Cove.
Right. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, would you tell us a little bit about how you, how you sort of invented this world and some of that process?
I think it was a combination of notes coming together and me just filling in stuff as I went along. Basically, Copper Cove, the center plot is around the railway line. And so I knew where it started in Copper Cove, but I had to come up with the stations along the way. And that's where a couple of things came in. And I was able to get stuff done on those along the way, figuring out who was there, why they were there. And I put most of the effort into Copper Cove itself at the time because that was the primary setting for the book, obviously. And then Darby Field a bit later, because that was where, what am I trying to say here? Because Darby Field was obviously the setting, and also in an odd way where everything kicked off, because you had around, if I didn't actually explicitly mention in the books, but around 50, 60, 70 years ago, this bunch of crazed English people suddenly dropping in the middle of an elven forest and with with only the faintest of explanations. That was covered at the beginning of Peevely Manor, so you
Right.
should be remembering that. And then after that, it, people gotten a hold of some of the ideas that these crazy English people have brought with them, and 50 years later, they're an ever-growing part of the landscape of the lands of the Crescent Sea and beyond, although modified in many ways because you need to use magic instead of petrol, or magic
Right.
instead of electricity.
The Dwim.
Dwim, yes, exactly.
Yes. So this is a singular term that you use in your books to indicate that sort of magical essence. How did you create this word, or were you inspired? Is this an homage to other magic systems? Tell me about Dwim.
Dwim, I think the origin of the word was basically me. I forget the exact term I shortened it from or modified it from, but there was something like there was some magic word with the letters DW in front of it for like a form of magic or a form of magician, and that's what I drew upon to try to figure out a good name for it and shorten it to that word. And the thing is, pure Dwim is dangerous.
Mm.
But the way you make it work is you infuse it in water, which produces steam, but it and also provides just general energy.
Mm.
But the thing is, it's hypothetically safe. It's a lot safer than coal or oil,
Right.
better for the environment, and recharging is not that difficult as long as you know somebody who can zap it for you, so to speak.
Right, a little technomancer almost are your engineers, because they are mingling a real engineering understanding as well as their magical abilities. I love that marriage in your books. I think it makes them very singular in the steampunk pantheon of books. I don't know. There are some other things in which magic and technology are commingled, but not that many in our steampunk worlds.
Right. By the way, I think that Bill Bodden in the comments got it perfectly right. It's Dweomer. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I think that's a word I may have stumbled across and shortened, modified slightly. But
Well, I like Dwim. It has a good mouthfeel when you say it.
thank you.
Yeah, it comes trippingly off the tongue, as the bard would say. So, a good choice. And also for me as a reader, I was just like, this seems like the kind of words you would easily throw around rather, if you're talking about your technology. You might, shorten things to that.
Exactly.
So tell us a little bit about your adventures becoming an author. Did you always want to write? Were you an avid, scribbler of stories as a young person? And then it's just sort of coalesced as you've had the time and the space to write?
There were a lot of fits and starts. My actual first love was actually, I remember writing some pretty bad stuff as a teen, but I think everybody went through that stage. But my first real attempt to do things was in the world of comics, where I wrote 2 issues of a science fiction series that was supposed to have a starting arc of 3 issues. And fortunately, artists kept flaking out on me. So I pretty much gave up on that angle, tried again with that. That failed. Came up with another series, and at that point, I just went, I'll just put things aside for a while. Wrote a book, which wasn't great by any means, but it was probably better than some people's first efforts. But I ended up putting that aside, writing another partial book, put that aside because I could never get the good ending for it, and then just putting things aside for a while and moving on to other interests. And then when the urge came back, I dragged out the last comic book series I had worked on, thought about it, realized, this might actually work. And then the next day I wrote on a forget what I was using. I think it was a computer at that time, but I wrote, it was another crappy Friday for Beth McGill. And that's how the first Monkey Queen book got started. It was an old series the old comic book series idea that I dusted off, rejiggered for prose, and I've been going ever since, more or less.
I love that.
Right.
Your Monkey Queen books are, they were not the first thing I read by you. I started with your Peevely Manor books, but they are the books that our mutual friend Amber fell in love with and could not stop talking about. And I know that your friends and fans of the Monkey Queen books are obsessed because they are arguably very charming books. And they have all of the signatures that you bring to your other books, these sort of warm characters that are very relatable, and this increasing connection of building a found family. These are themes you bring back to your books. Are they themes that are important in your own life?
Found family theme, it's not entirely, because I don't have a whole bunch of people around in this area that I'm close to, the area where I'm living right now, but online I have a lot of friends, some of whom are very close, some of whom are kind of close, some of whom I don't talk to often, but when I do talk to them, it's like boom. So I guess that's an aspect of things, but also it's just trying to. It's a case where a lot of my characters seem to not really have good family lives, and some, especially Monkey Queen, and a lot of them do drift together, sort of a found family or a close friendship circle, simply because that's what they need in life.
I love that. Although we also have some comments going on here. Dear Captain Charity says, you are her found family cousin, obviously. Yeah. I will say I can speak for the Temporal Entourage for reasons. I feel that I can speak for us as a community. You're so much a part of our family spirit, and you are such a generous, kind human in your personal interactions. It is something you infuse into your writing. There's a level of kindness that you bring and a real thoughtfulness to all of your stories as well.
Well, thank you. It's an awfully kind thing to say.
You're welcome.
But then again, it's one of those things where kindness does matter, I suppose, in the world as a whole. And I mean, I'm not going to get political, but there's a lot of places in the world right now where a little bit of kindness would do a heck of a lot of good.
It's absolutely true. And I think that that is something I've read Copper Cove before, spoiler alert. Or just full disclosure or whatever. I've read it before. I loved it already. I was happy to be sharing it with the crew. But I was really struck a lot by at this moment in history, this moment in the world, with how much Tabitha does just to be a little kinder in a world that is not always kind in return. She's up against a lot of odds, but she still is like, well, I don't need to suck every cent out of my commissions or my clients. I'm aware of their circumstances. I just want to be comfortable and get by. And I do need to charge for my labor, but also I don't need to be greedy about it. It's a lovely message. It is not apolitical, but it is more political, I suppose, in context.
Yeah, that's part of what I like about, one of the things I like about Tabitha is that she has her priorities straight. Money is great, and she would happily take as much of it as she could get, but she's not going to take it if it destroys her.
Right.
She's just happy. I mean, sometimes she does a job for somebody and it just pays well and it keeps her going. And sometimes she can do stuff because it'll make her happy and make other people happy. Like that one scene in the Copper Cove Courant, sorry, in the
Yes.
Courant office where she just fixes the tea brewer for them and then says, "You gotta get a better stock of tea in here."
Right.
Had I
Yeah.
been had I been thinking, I probably would have said, "Get him some bloody Travers Rise and Shine."
They do need some Travers rise and shine, especially as journalists. But I loved that moment because it was so evocative of what we know about the way the news was created, and newsrooms used to be run with this sort of constant flurry of activity, the need for caffeination to keep going, and the sort of abysmal quality of tea you're likely to get in the canteen. You know, the unwashed urn, the poorly maintained kettle. That's so essential. It was a lovely little detail. I
Thank you.
love that. Yeah, I love that moment. Robert, I think part of my challenge is that I'm just happy to chat with you. And so, and I know we've had you before, so there were some sort of depths that maybe we haven't gotten into, but I don't want to hoard all of your time to myself. I promise everyone you're going to get a chance to ask questions as well. But Robert, I think you had some things to share with us.
I
So,
do actually.
yes.
Right. Originally, I was going to get basically all of you who have been here know that it's been several years since I last actually published anything. Probably the longest thing I did at that time was for one of the Yuletide publications of the TSS, where I wrote a Christmas thing about Darby Field featuring Alice and Macaulay and all those people.
So good.
And there have been a lot of reasons and a lot of things that have kept me from basically last few years. I haven't done much at all, but I'm not going to detail what happened because it was a pretty sad moment, but it was also a bit of a revelation. Like I said, I understand there's been some real sadness in the community the last day or two, so I'm not going to go any further into that. But what happened is I saw something, I read something, and I thought it was the last. It's basically a sign saying maybe it's just time to give it up, and it had the exact opposite effect, kind of like when Starr asked me to write what turned out to be Skyblade's Gambit, because 2 days after that, I was going back to something I had started in January, and I plowed my way through a couple of scenes, and then all of a sudden, boom. So I am now ready. I think it's about 75, 80% of the way done. I need to plow my way through a couple of the climax of the book and then add a few extra scenes, go back and add a couple of scenes here and there to really establish things. But, and there's a reason why I'm announcing it here, which I'll get to, but I think I can safely say that coming at some point in 2024, I don't know when, but some point in 2024, you will see the third book, Return to Peevely Manor, or Macaulay in Full Bloom.
Robert, I'm so excited. Will you please allow me to host a virtual launch party for you when it's time?
We will see about that, depends on the schedule, but I did want to mention one important thing.
Mm.
The reason I feel I can get away with mentioning it here is because I can definitely say at this point, there will be 2 special guest stars in Return to Peevely Manor, Sophie Haverford and Tabitha Miles.
I love that. Oh, good. Oh, good. I'm so excited we'll get to see Sophie and Tabitha again. Of course, I'd love to see more of their story after reading Copper Cove again for today's book club. They're such charming characters, but I think they'll also get on very well with the wonderful crew of Peevely Manor. So
Well, maybe. We'll see how.
maybe.
Well,
Oh,
well, there are 2 things to warn you about. Sophie is, of course, a member of the press, and Alice is going to have some issues with the press at the beginning of the book. Oh, wait till you see them.
I'm
I-
excited.
Right. Not to mention the fact that there will be more tea, more baked goods, tulips, and bratwurst.
Oh no, and bratwurst. That's a lot going on. So we should not read hungry, is what I'm hearing.
Or make impulse trips to a flower shop.
Robert, I'm so happy as your friend and as a reader that you are writing again and that you have made such progress. And I just want to say, friend to friend, that creating in the last few years has been so hard for so many reasons. And I know, of course, you have your own personal set of reasons as well, but you are by no means alone in that. And that is very understandable. And I'm really happy that you are starting to get over that hurdle. I know a number of authors who just could not write anything for the last couple of years, and they're only coming out of that right now. So,
right. And there are people I know who are doing other things like making music or streaming online or the like, and they're going through the same thing. And I really hope that if they're there, even if they're watching, I hope they can, if they can't get through it themselves, I hope they can reach out to a friend or a family member or a therapist and get whatever help, whatever steps they need to get through it and let their voice be heard again, because the world could use a little more brightness right now, and those voices will help bring the brightness back.
absolutely true, Robert. And you are part of that,
Okay.
bringing more kindness and more brightness and more magic to the world. We're going to get into it, everyone, and you're going to get to ask your questions, but I just want to wrap up our little conversation to say that making art when things seem really hard and dire and the world is in a very difficult place can sometimes feel very frivolous as a creator, but I think it's essential because art reminds us to hope. It reminds us to be kind. It reminds us to be human and to see other people as human beings. Robert, you do that in spades. So thank you for sharing that with all of us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So now I'm going to stop monopolizing, Robert, I promise. And you're all going to get an opportunity to ask your questions. Thank you for allowing me the pleasure, Robert, of tormenting you with a little conversation. Karen.
The pleasure was all mine, by the way.
You are a delight, my friend. Karen, you're going to go first. You're going to ask the first question.
My question was going to be, when's the new Peebly book coming out? And you've answered the question. And I'm assuming you're going to talk about favourite characters and stuff later. But can I just say, I love the many in-jokes about the community, the steampunk community, like tea dueling and stuff, and the references to Carragher, like the Carragher's calibrator and stuff. I just found myself chuckling at all these little in-jokes. So thank you.
Yes. In fact, one of them is one I'm not sure anybody caught because I think they might have thought it meant something else. At the time I came up with the Tucker's reverberator, I didn't know about the practice of what the term was for doing that sort of thing, which it turns out is Tuckerization. And I really thought that some people were probably just thinking I was making an in-joke about Tuckerizing, especially since I did Tucker away later. But that has nothing to do with that. That name did not come from that. That name came from the ever amazing S.J. Tucker. She only has some slight steampunk connections, but she's still fabulous. And you may have figured it out from the fact that the reverberator made a tuneful hum.
I also love the octopus automaton as well. You have to get them in.
Well, thank you. That was inspired. Coptopus, yes.
Octopus.
Right, but I needed something I needed something serious to try to stall Tabitha right at that point, because that's when things were looking to be their worst. She had to get on that train, or else it was all over for everybody. And and of course, that's when Charlotte shows up. by the way, can I digress for a moment?
Absolutely, Robert. You can digress as much as you wish.
All right, then. So what happened is I started coming up with Copper Cove ideas in earnest in spring of, I believe, 2017 and summer of 2017. And during that time, I managed to make, that was when I first made the acquaintance of the marvelous Madame Askew. And at one point, we all, and both of us ended up at Clockwork Alchemy, the Bay Area Steampunk Convention, which Madame Askew has not been able to return to since, unfortunately, because it's usually scheduled shortly after some other event that requires her glorious presence. However, while I was there, that was also where I met Commodore Evie and Glinda the Tea Witch and a number of other fine members of the steampunk community, the entourage. But there was one point where, for some reason, I was trying to come up with another angle for the book, for the story, some sort of running foe. I already established that in my mind that Tabitha was going to be independent, and the two large guilds did not like that, and they needed one to figure out what I could do about an enforcer, someone who would be after her. And there was one point where, for some reason, there was in the lobby of the hotel where the con was being held, was this humongous round beanbag chair. And at one point, Madame Askew was lying flat on her back in that beanbag chair. I mean, that must have been terrible for her spine. But anyway, she was lying flat on her back right there and talking with someone else. And that was the moment where my brain just went off on a tangent, pretty much ignoring everything, even the absurdity of the fact that this woman was just going on her back. And that was where it came up with Charlotte, because I realized that what we really needed was a Roadrunner Coyote dynamic, where the Coyote is going to show up with this ridiculous set of gimmicks, and the Roadrunner is just going to go.
So delighted. Also, as an addition to this story, Robert came round once I was lying flat, but what happened before Robert came round the corner was I was trying to sit like a normal person on that chair, and I was in a corset and bustle and all the nonsense. And as I sat down, I sort of plopped down as you do, and the circular beanbag was like, sitting is not what's going to happen. And it just collapsed under me, and I ended up falling on my back. I was like, well, this is where I'm having this conversation now. I'm just going to sit here or lay here because I can't get up without a lot of assistance.
Yes, in fact, I believe I posted a picture of that on Facebook with the caption, "Oh dear, Madame Askew has fallen and she can't get up."
That's correct. What a delightful moment. We had such a wonderful time at that convention, and it's really, if you have the opportunity, if you're in the Bay Area and can attend, Clockwork Alchemy is a very charming steampunk convention, and I am sad that I cannot get back to it.
Of course.
Wonderful. Yeah. So, Robert, thank you for that tangent, because it's a wonderful story and a wonderful memory. And I am Alicia normally went to that convention as well, and I'm sorry that you also missed that moment in the lobby, Alicia. It was ridiculous. But we have since met, and I'm so grateful. So, Jessica, welcome to Book Club. Hello, my friend. This is your opportunity to ask Robert a question about his writing or the book. And I did, Karen reminded me I went a little off book. So don't worry, I'm going to harangue all of you later as well. So, Jessica.
Well, I just wanted to make a comment that I really appreciate that you used LGBTQ characters as main characters without making them have to come out of the closet, without forcing them into roles. Like they're not roles that are stereotypical. And I really appreciated that. And I liked the slow burn romance. That was, like, I think the best way to do this romance, because all along you can kind of get these little hints that they're going to get together, and then the kiss happens, and it was just a wonderful moment. And then to hear inside her head about what she was thinking after the kiss and how she felt, it was just wonderfully done. So I wanted to tell you that I appreciated that too. And the whole story was just so whimsical. Being Combining fantasy with steampunk, I think you did it on such a great level without taking away the science of steampunk and totally making it magical. You had a good balance between the two.
Thank you for all the kind words, Jessica.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
part of the world building, even if it wasn't on a conscious level, was to try to create a universe where only the real jerks might possibly get upset about anything that wasn't straight cis white male stuff. And there is that scene in the police station where you find, unfortunately, a few of those jerks. But generally, as a rule of thumb, in the Crescent Sea and around it, people don't really care about sexual orientation or which gender you are or whatever. They may look down upon you for being poor. They may look down upon you for being unfashionably dressed or not working in the right position, but they couldn't care less about who you're sleeping with. So that struck me as being something to incorporate. The only regret I have is that I wasn't exactly using the terms, and I probably should have at that point. I probably should have just had Tabitha come out and say that she was Pan. But instead, I tried to dance around it, saying I fancy both men and women, and that really didn't work as well as I would have liked. But at least the rest of the scene I thought made up for it. So lesson learned, and I'm going to keep that in mind for next time.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you for your comment, Jessica. Robert, I can only speak as one member of the LGBTQ community, but I did think it worked out the way you handled it. It was sort of how she thought about herself rather than worrying about the cultural development of any terms in your fantastical setting. So it worked for me personally, just as an aside.
Well, thank you, but
Yeah.
I've also got to keep remembering also that people want to see themselves in these characters. They want the representation.
They do.
Right. And I'm glad that there's more and more of it out there, and I'm glad that a lot of it is from the LGBTQ plus community. And I encourage that strongly, and I hope we see much, much, much more.
Same, Robert. Thank you. All right, Lady June Squirrel, looking very dapper today.
How can I have any questions or anything when they have already all been used? Let's see, I did want to say that I picked up on one thing, which I'm sure other people did. The red-headed woman with the teacup hat, that had to be Madam, right?
Oh, of course.
Yes.
In fact, this was her. At this point, my brain is starting to go. So I can't remember for sure which came first, but I think that Copper Cove came after I had done Book Fair Frenzy.
I think so.
Which is exact. And part of me kind of regrets not checking first, but the rest of me is just thinking, let's just go for it. I need somebody who can handle the tea dueling, and there is this woman who can definitely fill the bill. Mm-hmm. However, Lady June Squirrel, you're a fabulous person, and I love your new kitties. But you forgot to mention the companion of Lady Sovetta, Lord Oceanio.
Well, I was going to get there.
Oh, okay. Okay, I stand corrected. Go ahead, continue, please.
Well, no, just that there was the companion, and I was likening him to the Grand Arbiter, but he was too suave and dark. Not that the Grand Arbiter isn't suave and tall and slender and everything, but the Lord Oceanus seemed more gosh, I can't even think. I'm not good at actors' names, but he seemed more something else. But I just want to say this was my comment that I bet nobody else will make. I started reading the prequel sequel to Legends and Lattes at the same time I was reading this book, and I kept conflating them. I don't know if anybody else has read it, but it's a similar kind of mismatched love affair, not possible or possible sort of thing. And it's delightful, by the way.
Thank you.
So I was also reading Bookstores and Bone Dust right before reading Cove again, and so it's been very cozy reading, and they pair very nicely together.
Yes,
actually,
yes,
it's a good pairing. I highly recommend just delving into the coziness.
Okay. Well, it's a complete coincidence that several scenes in Return to Peevely Manor do take place in a bookshop. And
Love that.
right, it's a pure coincidence, seriously, but it's also because I wanted an excuse to get Priscilla Wentworth into the cast on a regular basis, and it seemed to me that Darby Field needed a bookshop. And so it all came together at that point. The bookshop will play a key role, and well, not a key role, but there will be several scenes set there. And rest assured, I will be coming up with new wacky book titles to go with the story. I've already got one or two in mind, but and I also just need to make sure that they're not being borrowed by somebody else.
Well,
very exciting.
Just publish first.
That's all. Just publish first. Perfect.
After all, remember your book came out before Bookshops and Bone Dust, so he could have been reading your book and
well, let me put it this way: if Travis Baldry's been reading my book, I would love to see him just get up and say, "Hey, if you like my books, you should try Peevely Manor." I could use the extra sales that would come from a recommendation from an extremely popular and award-winning author.
Why don't you tell him that?
Right. Delightful.
Because he probably just go, "Who's this weirdo?"
Oh no.
Well, I shall continue to promote your books, and I'm so sorry I spoke right over you, Lady Junespill. I apologize.
Oh, it happens. I wanted to show you Boba, but Boba is not he doesn't come up in my lap and bug the heck out of me.
Only Mango.
I'm sure that Boba's a good kitty all the same.
Oh yes, well, I've only had them for like a week and a half. Oh but I have no more things on top of refrigerators or shelves, so they're all on the floor. Anyway, thank you very much, Robert. It's a delightful book.
Thank you. Well, it's good to see you.
All right, my darling Cindy Joy, it is your turn. Do you have a question or a comment for our dear friend Robert?
There, that's how I unmute myself. I enjoyed the book a lot. I really like the way, so in this book, and I read Skyblade for Talk Like a Pirate Day. So on Madame Askew's recommendation. But I like the way that you describe costumes in your books. I like how lavishly you paint the picture of what the people are wearing and how they look. And do you have a thing for redheads?
The redhead thing, I will not comment publicly on. Actually, funny story. I was originally intending on Tabitha Miles to be blonde, but here comes that name again, Star Darksbane. I'm so sorry. Star now is non-binary and uses they/them pronouns. Back in the day, they were using different pronouns. We won't go into that, but they designed that marvelous cover that you see on Copper Cove and redesigned it upon my request because they are my awesome pal. But I sent her the original stock image I'd found to use for Tabitha, and she was blonde. And Star just said, "I like redheads." So she changed it. And so if you're going to point a finger at anybody about redheads, it's going to be Star.
Skyblade also featured Seductive.
Red Blade, well, Red Blade and Skyblade's Gambit and Peevely Manor and yeah. It's, I like to say it's a coincidence, but it was not a coincidence with Skyblade's Gambit. It was not a coincidence with the Red Blade novel in the Monkey Queen series. It was a coincidence in Peevely Manor because the best stock image I found for the covers featured a woman with reddish hair. So I just went with it. Besides,
Just get around.
yeah. However, if let's just say that through some miracle of whatever, I could redo the covers with a professional artist who had a good feel for the series and for humor. And they said, look, can we give her some other color? I've got an issue of red hair. I'd probably shrug my shoulders and go with it, simply because we've never seen a full description of Alice in any of the books. Because physical description, I should say. She's had plenty of emotional descriptions, mostly from Lord Oakton. But if someone were to say we want to redo Alice's appearance, I'd probably give it a good hard thought at the minimum, simply because she's the look her look has never been officially established except on the covers. So, but thing for redheads, no comment.
Okay, so that was the silly question that I didn't expect quite so much answer to. I did have a more serious question, which is, I didn't get a firm grasp of what the catastrophe was that caused all these people to want to take revenge by,
Well,
destroying-
it wasn't so much revenge, but there were basically at the beginning of the book, I established that the two guilds that are handling the bulk of the construction work on the bridge, the
right,
rail line, are basically bragging, no one's died, no one's died. Like in comparison with the Golden Gate Bridge, which was many years ago, but there were several dozen deaths during the construction of that, close to a century ago. However, it turned out that there was an accident, 3 people died, and they're doing their best to cover it up because they don't want a scandal to eclipse the opening of their great private works project. And it turns out that they had to murder one of their own who was trying to reveal the secret, and also murder a couple of other people who might have told. And that's when they recruited poor Neil, because Neil lost his mom in that accident. He's the one who's out for blood, as it turns out.
right.
So, but not Stott, I can't remember the guy's name. I just reread the book 2 days ago. But
Strom.
huh?
Strom.
Oh yeah, Strom. Strom is indeed out for power, but he wants to make sure that there's no trace left of anything he might have done wrong. So he basically had 2 crafters killed and 1 nearly killed, and also killed Whitlock along the way. And Neil got mixed up in that because he wants revenge, but he realizes too late that he's gone too far, but he's still not willing to back down because he wants that vengeance, even if it means not stopping that train and letting a whole lot of people die as a result of it.
Oh, Neil.
Yeah.
Oh, Neil. So, and as Bill messaged me, spoiler alert, we are going to talk about things that have happened in the book. So,
Right.
thank you.
Book club.
Yeah.
Talk
Right. I'm
about
hoping you've all read it by now.
We hope, and if you have not read it, there's no test, there's no book report. We're just happy to have you watching and participate, and we hope you will read it later because it's very good. So, thank you, Robert.
So it was in retaliation to them covering up that several people had died in this accident, including Neil's mother.
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
And okay, I'm going to let somebody else ask you my other questions because I'm sure they will.
Thank you, Cindy Joy. All right, Laura. Hello, my friend.
Oh, all right. First of all, I wanted to ask you about, you said that your first writing was supposed to be comic books. Why did you choose that? Just did you have a friend who was an artist, or?
Well, it's more along the lines of I've been reading comic books since pretty much the moment I could figure out what was going on with the pages. And even before that, I think I was reading Peanuts comics, I should say, in the local paper. And so it was just something I fell into, because especially since I came into really reading comics right around the early 80s, which was when the first real successful independent comics hit, and people began to realize that you didn't have to tell stories about just superheroes or teenagers getting in trouble. There was ElfQuest, for example, which changed a lot of people's opinion about comics. There was one other which hit me personally, but I'm not going to mention it because it turned out the guy who drew it was a misogynistic pig, which made me sad. But then you start getting all these other incredible voices suddenly popping up. You had the Hernandez brothers with their Love and Rocket slice of life comics. You had Stan Sakai doing his amazing Usagi Yojimbo Samurai Rabbit comic book. And you also had this one guy named Phil Folio dipping his toes into the comic book world at that point. So that was what led me to move into comics in the first place. Unfortunately, I can't draw. So the first artist I teamed up with, flaked out a little. The second artist I teamed up with didn't want to do the third issue. And I felt at that point, it's probably best to let it die, especially since a couple of years later, some of the ideas I had, I'm not saying there was theft involved by any means because it was such a low print run comic anyway. But a couple of years later, all of a sudden you had Star Trek Deep Space Nine and Babylon 5, and they were using some, definitely not all, but a couple of the ideas I'd come up with for the comic. I just thought, well, I'll just let it slip then. But it's no biggie, because one good thing is stories may not end when you want them to, but neither do ideas. And so I kept coming up with new ones.
I love that. Neither do ideas. Absolutely, Robert. Great question, Laura. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Laura.
All right, Alicia, looking very serious with the new kitten.
How can one be that serious when you get a new kitten in their lap?
Oh, it's okay. It's okay, honey. I just freaked her out.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah, we had a rough night. She cried most of the night, and today she's like chill and whatever. So we're doing better.
good.
But
Go ahead.
oh no, we brought her home yesterday, and she didn't eat most of the day, and then 11 o'clock, being a 10-month-old kitten, she needed to eat all the food.
Oh, yes.
So I think we went to bed around 3. Maybe 4.
Poor kitty.
Oh well.
But I'm sure that eventually it'll work out.
Yeah, we'll give it a week. I got to take her to the vet because she's sneezing.
Oh dear.
So
there's always a settling in period with a new kitty in the house. So
yeah, I think this will be easier. But anyway, my question. Oh my God, why did you choose trains? That's so awesome.
I'm sorry?
So why why did you choose trains? Which is something I don't normally see in steampunk, and it's really something you should. Not a nerd, but I just liked the whole concept of trains.
Well, it's I appreciate that. It's part of because that was one big symbol of technological advancement, and I thought it was a logical step, especially since I know other fantasy authors had come up with steam-related things, like Sir Terry with the Raising Steam book. But also, it was one of those things I knew would be a big project that would get Tabitha's interest. And again, it's probably influenced by those wacky English people suddenly showing up 50, 70 years ago, they probably told stories about trains, and that started giving people ideas.
Oh, the wacky English and their trains.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and the earliest like concepts and ideas for steam and steam engines is 1760, 1780, I think. I mean, at that point, they're theories. They don't really start to become practical or useful until the 19th century, but it's the very end of the 18th century. So pirates are steampunk. I'll die on that hill.
They are steampunk, Alicia. Absolutely.
It just, but yeah, I really liked the melding of trains, and then there's sort of this magical aspect to it, and I just thought it was a really nice. It's definitely steampunk, but it was a nice take on how are we going to play with the technology that's not every other steampunk novel. I just really liked that aspect of the book.
Well, thank you.
And because I like trains.
Keep it in mind. But thank you.
Trains are delightful, and I didn't even think about that, but Alicia, you're right. You don't see them in as many steampunk novels, which does feel like a missed opportunity. So thank you, Robert.
Yeah, I mean, I know Karen has them in hers too. I just haven't read them. I haven't gotten that far yet.
Well, thank you both. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Alicia. All right, Terry, coming around to you. You're looking very snug.
I'm trying.
Yeah, is it terribly cold?
I don't think it's terribly cold, but I've got a draft somewhere.
Oh, no.
I'm not happy. I think it's probably 40, but drafts are not good.
That sounds terribly cold where I'm sitting right now.
Okay.
So,
it'll get colder before it gets warmer.
Oh, yeah.
I do have a question after he answered the first two, Robert, very quickly, like what's next? And will there be a crossover? Now, do you have an author that you look at for inspiration or one that has influenced your writing?
There would be more than just one.
Right.
I mean, for People Humanity, obvious influences are Terry Pratchett and P.G. Wodehouse.
Mm-hmm.
For Copper Cove, I think I definitely wasn't leaning towards those two as much, but I think there probably was like the general sense of maybe 19th century adventure novel writers, most likely Conan Doyle.
Mm.
One of these days I'd like to do a Sherlock Holmes thing, but I don't know if I can pull it off, but it's a Sherlock Holmes related thing, I should say. But also, in a general sense, well, I've mentioned the Folios, Phil and Kaya as a huge influence, and there have been others along the way. I will mention Barry Hugart, the late author of Bridge of Birds and its successor novels. I recognize there are a couple things in those books that could be considered problematic, but there are also a lot of things in there that are beautifully, hilariously, joyfully written. So I'm trying to overlook the bad stuff. And I should also mention Connie Willis and Gail Carriger. And for some of my more absurd moments, I will veer outside the worlds of prose to mention Charles Schulz with Peanuts and the great animators, Chuck Jones, the creator, not creator, but the best Bugs Bunny animator ever and the creator of The Coyote and the Roadrunner, and the legendary Miyazaki.
Mm.
In fact, Miyazaki may have been where I got some of the Copper Cove inspiration from, now that I think about it. Because one thing you don't know, most people don't really acknowledge about Miyazaki because they focus on either his cozy stuff like Totoro or the spectacular stuff like Spirited Away. But he can be really funny when he puts his mind to it. And one thing that immediately comes to mind is the Sherlock Hound stories that he animated many, 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 many years ago, which have some incredibly hilarious moments. And one example is he uses Moriarty as a recurring bad guy, although it's not a mathematician crime lord, but a mad scientist with a couple of hapless goon assistants. And at one point, he's trying to catch. One point, his scheme is starting to fall apart. And instead of doing something mad genius intellectual, he just grabs a gun and starts shooting, saying, "I'm tired of being an intellectual criminal."
Love it. I love it.
Well,
Honestly,
thank you.
Robert, there were a few moments where I really could imagine it in a sort of like Miyazaki cityscape in his animation. So you really are pulling on that. And Terry, what a great question. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Terry.
All right, Captain Charity. Hello. Good to see you. Also all snuggled up.
I am just getting off work, and therefore I am in my coat, my cocoon coat. I love this thing so much.
So good.
Oh, and I'm so glad to be back at book club. Oh my God, you have no idea.
We've
Anyway,
missed you. Welcome back. We've missed you so much.
life is slightly less chaotic. Robert, I adore you. You're amazing. I love all of your books. You are absolutely magnificent.
Thank you.
And I am kind of now forcing Captain Evie to read a lot more of the weird books that I read. She's like, "Well, I've read the Peebly." I'm like, "But did you read the rest of them?"
Oh, I know
And she
she's
went,
read Copper.
"No."
I know she's read Copper Cove because she has said marvelous, nice things to me about Copper Cove in the past, and I'm very glad about that.
I have to run back inside. Apparently, we are breaking the world. So, but yes, you're amazing and wonderful, and I love your books, and you're lovely. So,
Thank you.
I have to go back to work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Good luck, Captain Evie or Captain Charity.
Give my best to Evie, would you?
Yes, yes, we love her. So hopefully things settle for Charity as she's running in to save the day. Dear Bill, we do have time for a question from you. Do you have a question for our dear friend?
All of my questions have been stolen by others.
Well, as it happens,
I did want to say that I really enjoyed the book, Robert, and it was as Madam has pointed out, it's very cozy and warm and comforting, and it was something I needed right now. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Bill. I appreciate it a great deal.
Yeah. Honestly, this is such a perfect read for our cozy season. So all November long, we've been celebrating coziness and hygge and all of that delightfulness. And I couldn't think of a better author to be celebrating that with us. Because, Robert, you do have a cozy quality even in your most adventuresome books. There's a certain surety that kindness will out.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
It's very satisfying. Very lovely. Now, I absolutely did go off book from my normal format. Thank you all for bearing with me. If you don't mind doing a lightning round, I would love hearing everyone's favorite character from the book. And it doesn't matter if someone else has already picked your favorite. We are all allowed to love Darjeeling, obviously. But, you know, I do want to hear your favorite characters. And I'm certain, Robert, you would not mind hearing some more lovely things. So
have at it.
All right, so I did start with Karen last time so that Karen would get her questions in because I teased her so much the last time. Karen, you're so good. Charity, can you share your favorite character with us, or are you too indisposed?
My favorite character is all right, we're good. All of them. I love all of them. Robert's a great writer. I gotta go fix the door now.
All right, good.
Have fun with the door.
The wind caught the door, and now we're trapped in Verizon because we can't, fix the door.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Good luck.
Good
luck. All right, Alicia, Who's your favorite character? I'll ask whilst you're laughing because that's the best time.
Well, I mean, certainly the pet. He's adorable. He needs more
Darjeeling.
time.
However, I will correct you. Darjeeling is a she.
She.
Oh, it
yes.
is a she. That's right. It is a she. Darjeeling is just wonderful.
Thank you.
I just cracked me up.
She will be
but
back
I
to
think-
return to Peevely Manor, by the way.
Oh, that's good. But I'm trying to think. I mean, I loved all the characters, honestly, but like, I just found Darjeeling so charming. I mean, the whole book is. Let's be honest.
Well, thank you.
Even the kissy bits.
Even the kissy bits.
Even the kissy bits.
Thank you, Alicia.
Romance isn't my thing, but it's okay because this
Alright.
was just wonderful because it was story driven, and so it's part of the story. It's not, it works in very well and seems like it belongs, like it's natural, I guess. But anyway.
You could have said the train was your favorite character.
Oh, that's true. I could have picked the train. I didn't think about inanimate objects.
We have a very broad definition of character around here. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, but that's okay.
We still know you love the train.
Yeah, I do. I adore the train.
Thank you, Alicia. Laura, favorite character. Could include the train.
I'm going to be boring. I'm going to say Tabitha is my favorite character. She's the main character. We know the most about her, and I love her.
That's not
She
boring.
can fix all the things, and she made wings. So
she made wings.
Well, she made part of the wings, but
I'm sure she could make the whole thing if she had all the blueprints.
oh, I'm sure she could too.
And improve them.
Absolutely.
And improve them. Yeah. Thank you, Laura. Please go ahead, Robert.
I'm just thanking Laura myself.
Oh, you can always speak over me. I'm so chatty, and please do not let me run roughshod over you. Terry, favorite character.
I'm going to vote with Tabitha also, but for a good reason. She's so competent, and yet she doesn't broadcast that competence. She's humble. Yeah.
Yeah. She doesn't take herself too seriously. She's never
Right.
precious.
Yes. Yep.
I love that. Thank you, Terry.
Yes,
All
thank
right.
you, Terry.
Bill, favorite character.
My favorite character was the Dwim.
Well,
it was a fascinating concept, and I really enjoyed seeing it, and how it, was how Tabitha interacted with it and could sense, when things were wrong. I just thought that was a great aspect. It was really, really cool.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bill. That's excellent. All right, Lady June Squall, favorite character.
Well, Tabitha, because of her dress sense, because I like to wear pants, and I happen to have had the right kind of hat, and her independence and not wanting to be part of the guilds. Although I do support the concept of unions, which are run by people, but not guilds. How about that?
Yes, that is a whole other topic of conversation that I think is really. I was the interviewer at the beginning of this really missed her calling and should have asked about that because it's such a good topic. Thank you, Lady June. All right, Cindy Joy, your favorite character.
So it's hard to pick a favorite character because there's quite a few that I like, but I can tell you that my least favorite characters are the two guilds. Can't stand them. So, which really, they're
Right, that was one
they're
of the
oppressive.
right. That's one of the points I was trying to make about. There's a bit of analogy that pops in during Copper Cove, and one of it is that while technology has its advantages, it also has its drawbacks. And one of the drawbacks is that, like with a lot of fields, generally it gets narrowed down to just 2 or 3 companies or 2 or 3 groups of people. And that's basically what happened in Copper Cove, where the development ended up being to just 2 guilds. And it's actually kind of stifling and boring in a way because, as Tabitha pointed out, they really don't have any design sense. And also they don't treat
And they're not making
very
it
well.
better. They're not making the product that's being produced better, and they're not making it more innovative, and they're not
Right.
they're suppressing, and they're like issuing rules and shoving people into corners. And I think one of the things I really like about Tabitha is that she's like, I don't put baby in the corner, and she goes and does her own thing, and she knows what her competency is, and she stands on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's great observations. And also, yeah, I mean, such a wonderful element of the story, Robert, and the way you handled that.
Well, thank you.
Welcome. All right, Jessica, who was your favorite character?
Okay, I really enjoyed towards the beginning of the book the automaton that Tabitha obliterated. That was so great. I just thought that was an awesome moment. And the automaton was like, the idea of it being out of control was really exciting to me. And so the automaton was my favorite.
Well, I'm certain the Myrmidon would appreciate that if it wasn't in 1,000 little pieces scattered all over Copper Cove streets. Yeah, Lady Greenbray has still not accepted Tabitha's reluctant offer to help repair it.
And she should absolutely take Tabitha up on that, because what a generous offer.
Well, it was more like, oh, do you want your bloody thing fixed? I'll help. Come on. It wasn't exactly a generous offer. It was more like a, oh, yeah, moment for her.
I mean, still generous. Tabitha wasn't, going to extort a lot of money from her, and she really should get paid. So
Tabitha would probably extort the moon from Lady Greenbay at this point, especially since Lady Greenbay got a bit of real dirty revenge at one point in the book, you'll remember.
Yeah, she stole that ticket. Oh, I just wanted to trip her on the platform. I'm like, oh, what happens if she just trips on the hem of her skirt? Oh, no.
So, yeah, but
it worked out.
Oh, yeah, definitely worked out for everyone.
It did. That was wonderful. Thank you, Jessica, for mentioning the Myrmidion who is destroyed wonderfully, dramatically towards the beginning of the book. It's such a great moment. Robert, wonderful use of the technology there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Karen, I did save you for last.
Okay. Well, Tabitha, I liked her independence. I really like Darjeeling because I always have a soft spot for the little ferry offsider thing. But probably my strongest feeling about any character was for Lady Greenbray. I really didn't like her arrogance. And I do like the fact that she effectively got a comeuppance in the end because she got stepped on basically socially and outclassed, as it were, by Lady Sylvetta. I really, really did not like Lester. So that was probably my strongest emotion about any character, I must admit.
Well, yeah, she's a bit of a dirty skunk.
We need a villain.
Yeah, we need a villain. And
I
poor
Neil.
I mean, Neil. So complicated.
Neil.
Yeah, Neil, well, he ended up a villain, but I don't think he fully understood his choice. And if and when I do a second or third Copper Cove novel, we will be circling back to Neil and his story.
I'm glad we're going to come back to his story. And Robert,
eventually, maybe.
I do hope for more Copper Cove. Bill, you raised your hand.
Yes, I did. Did nobody pick Sophie?
No one picked Sophie.
Oh my God!
Sophronia.
Really, upper class woman who is fighting against the man? Come on!
She's a great
Sophia is
character.
one of my favorite. She's like at the top of my favorite character list with the because she's got the best clothes, and the whole comes from a wealthy family, but is interested in helping people that are not.
And there's a story there, you know.
Yeah, very, oh yeah, and very
Yes, there's gotta
activist.
be a
She's such an
story.
activist.
No.
Yeah.
Great.
There's
Great.
free inspiration for you, Robert. There you go.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you.
So, Robert, thank you so much. Thank you all so much for being with us today. And this is my moment to remind you the best gift you can give an author, especially as we're going into the holiday season and the time of book giving, is to write a review. Well, money, buy their books, buy the books. But if you are like, I'm on a budget, review the books. So Robert's books make wonderful gifts. They're excellent stocking stuffers. If you know anyone who like is struggling and needs a boost in the form of a book, I recommend sharing the cozy, wonderful comforts of Robert's stories. And but also review things, and reviews can be very simple. You can just go on, leave a few stars on Goodreads or what have you, and say, I really liked this, and I stayed up all night reading it.
And also, if you're coming across this video later, you should be able to request Copper Cove and my other books through your local library as ebooks. And if that's the path you need to take because for financial reasons, please do so. I do not mind at all. Libraries are awesome. Librarians are awesome, and they deserve your support. And if that's how you need or choose to read my books, please do it, please.
We love the library, and checking out books from your library really does show them that you're interested and you support them, and helps them make the case for more tax dollars. So use your library. Absolutely. Thank you, Robert. Remember that bookshop.org is also an option for buying your books, and that you can get Robert's hard copies through that shop, and then choose your favorite independent bookstore to support when you're checking out there, which is very lovely. As well as being able to pick up Robert's books as digital copies. And I have both. It's also possible you need both a physical copy and a travel copy, which is how I think of my digital books. They're my travel copies. So, but also books are wonderful gifts. And once again, we're coming up on Yola Bokaflad, which will be happening in December, and I think giving books is the very best thing to do. So get cozy, read a wonderful book by Robert. I highly recommend Copper Cove, but also start out with Peevely Manor. If you want to immerse in some steampunk reads, it's a perfect place to start. If you want some smooching and high winds adventures, start out with the Skyblade book, because it has both of those things in spades, and it's delightful. So, Robert, we'll have to have you back again. It's wonderful to have you back tonight. Everyone, we are going on break until January. So this was our last read together of 2023. Robert, thank you for gracing us with your presence and for helping us celebrate coziness, friendship, and kindness together today.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you all for attending. It was a blast, and I look forward to doing this again sometime.
Absolutely. We will have you back. And for January, we are reading Babel by R.F. Kuang. I should have practiced. It's a wonderful tome all about language and linguists and dark academia, and it's at an alternative history Oxford, and it is so good. I'm very excited to enjoy this with you. And it is a big tome of a book, so we wanted to make sure to give you plenty of time to read it. So you can start. Oh, yeah, no, it was definitely my fault. That book is definitely my fault. Bill's being very kind, but I was like, oh, Bill, what if we read this one that we could bludgeon people with? It's about language and linguists. And Bill's like, well, I mean, okay. So Bill's very, very kind. It is, oops, yeah, here we go. Look at this. Here's our book, Babel by R.F. Kuang. And it's gonna keep you up a few nights, so get ready to crack on with this. It's delightful, and yes, it's my fault. All you had to do was like waft linguists in front of me. I was like, the siren song of phonemes. I would love to read it, thanks. So anyway, I'm so excited to discuss this with you all, and to start our year off with something a little bit chewy, because we've got a lot of pages to dive into.
Not to mention the fact that you can probably stun a mash or a pickpocket with it.
Absolutely. It's a book, it's entertaining, and it is also a bludgeoning implement. It's wonderful. Bill, please share our February book.
I'll just say it. It's Buffalo Soldier by Maurice Broaddus.
We read that already.
We read it in the in-person book club, Lady June Squirrel. So it's definitely a repeat. We hope to have Maurice be able to join us for a chat in February. We try not to repeat too much, but at this point, we usually have at least one repeat in the book club year with things we read at our in-person book club.
To be outrageous, I don't mind when we repeat things I liked, but I don't like it when we repeat things I didn't like.
That's fair. That's fair. And not outrageous, June, merely honest, and I love you for it. So, Bill has been, oh, pardon me, Bill.
Oh, no problem. One advantage is that Babel is a dog choking wad of a book, but Buffalo Soldier is a little thinner, so give you a little chance to breathe there. And then yes. we are not meeting in March, so.
For those who have not kept up with our schedule for book club, we always take March off because I am neck deep in Wild West Con every March, and then we take December off because there are all these holidays and things that people like to celebrate. So we give you a bit of a break for those 2 months, and we meet every other month of the year on the third Sunday of the month at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, so Seattle time. It's very important because when the time change happens, Tucson has to change and everyone else stays the same. So yes, Alicia, WWC is technically at the end of February, but it bleeds into the beginning of March, so we're still going to take March off for my own sanity. So once we have confirmed everything, we will have our list of books up. Bill has diligently been reaching out to authors and finalizing things, so we should have our schedule up sooner rather than later. Thank you, Bill. You're a delight. So, and for everyone, this is my reminder to you all as we go out into the world at the end of our book club year together, to please treasure yourselves as I treasure you, to take very good care of yourselves, especially in the chilly season. If you're not Karen simply has to get not heat stroke, please. Stay hydrated, my friend. But please remember to get your vaccines and your boosters, wash your hands, take very good care of yourselves, have the good tea, drink the books you love. Drink the books you love. Yes, drink them. Drink the books. Just suck them in. Don't read them, consume them. Inhale them. Oh, no. Oh dear.
I don't think they'll fit in my kettle.
Don't boil your books, please. They won't fit in my kettle.
My mug today is covered with quotes from Jane Austen.
I love that. So, but please take very good care of yourselves. You are irreplaceable treasures. And I would really like to see you in January for book club again. Do take note that the Grand Arbiter and I are plotting something special with books for December. It is not our official book club. I should have details coming out soon on Patreon and then in the newsletter, and then it will roll out onto Facebook. But here's my spoiler for you, my little hint, my little warning. If you haven't read Gail's latest series of books that are not steampunk but are wonderful, get on it. You better read all 3. There will be spoilers. That's what I've got for you. So thank you everyone for being here. Robert, thank you for being our guest. So wonderful to have you. And have a wonderful night, everyone.